Are you looking to test the waters of music production but don't know where to start? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to make a beat from start to finish without skipping any steps so that you can follow along and make a beat for your own in Logic Pro. This video is geared towards beginners, the people out there that are looking to make their first beat. If you're more intermediate or more advanced at music production, then go check out some of my other videos because I think you'll find them helpful. I also encourage viewers to watch the entire video. There are a lot of tidbits in here that you're not going to want to miss out on, and understanding the entire process is going to help you make that much better music. The reason I'm using Logic Pro for this tutorial is because it's my DAW of choice. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation, and there are a host of DAWs you can choose, but if you have a Mac and you're looking for a beginner-friendly way of making music, then Logic Pro is your best friend. Now, this is going to be a little bit longer than some of my normal videos. If you're interested in learning more about music production in general or taking your home studio setup to the next sound level, consider subscribing below. I release videos like this all the time that are designed to help you make better music. One last thing before we dive in, a little bit of background about myself. My name is Maddie and I'm a professional music producer. I do this day in and day out. I know exactly what these advanced topics are so I can explain them in a way that makes sense so that you can get creating music really fast. If you're interested in hearing some of my stuff, you can check out my portfolio on my website. You can also check out some of the services I offer there. If at any time during this video you want to skip ahead to a different part, feel free to do so. This video is made for you. But this is less of a video and more of an actual course or a guide on how to make a beat. And with all of that being said, let's get started by opening up a project in Logic. First, get started by opening up Logic on your computer. We're going to click on File, New. After you open up Logic, you'll be greeted with this new project window. We're going to choose Empty Project for now, and we'll start with an audio track. This is what your window will look like when you first start opening up Logic, and I'm quickly going to run through some of the main things you need to know about this interface. To start off, let's talk about the Arrange window in Logic. The Arrange window will let us record our sounds and then adjust them later. This is where all of our recorded sounds will end up after we've done them. Another important feature of Logic is called the Mixer. We can click on the Mixer by clicking here on these mixing icons or clicking X. The Mixer will contain all of the tracks in our project, and we're able to adjust the volumes by adjusting these faders here. If we ever want to set one back to 0, we can hold down Alt and click on it and set it back to 0. Once again, X is the mixing shortcut. Another important thing to note are these numbers up here. The one that is the most important is going to be this BPM. I'm sure that you've heard of BPM before, but if you're not familiar, it stands for beats per minute. Different genres have different beats per minute, and this has to do with the tempo. A tempo in music is how fast or how slow the song is playing. So, take a listen here. I'll show you what 95 BPM sounds like. To show you, I'm going to turn on this metronome by clicking here, or alternatively, I could click K on my keyboard, K for click. Perfect. Now, notice every 4 beats, this metronome is having an accent. That's because we're in 4/4 time. For this tutorial, I'm going to stick in 4/4 time, but just know that there are other musical time signatures out there that you can use. But 99% of the time, when I'm making a beat, I use 4/4 time. Let's go back to the beginning and let's check out a higher BPM and what that might sound like. 128 BPM is a really common BPM range for some EDM genres. You can hear the difference there and how fast it is. Before hopping into the recording, let's go over the library. If we press Y on our keyboard or click on this file cabinet right here, we can find all of the sounds that Logic has downloaded for us. If we look here, first of all, these aren't sounds, these are just audio effects. In order to get the actual instruments that Logic has available for us, we need to create a new track. We can do that by clicking on this plus button right here. Now, we'll click Software Instrument and we'll click Create. Make sure it's set to default patch and make sure the audio output is set to your output or your speakers. Perfect. Since we clicked on this audio track, it will give us all of these audio presets. If we click on this software instrument track, it will give us the software instruments that we can play through Logic. Logic has a really wide variety of software instruments, and it's a really great starting point for a lot of music producers out there. Let's just click on piano and click on my favorite piano for starting out, the Steinway Grand Piano. Now, there are multiple ways to record MIDI after you selected your software instrument. If you don't have a keyboard attached to your computer, you can click on Command K to go to musical typing. That once again is Command K. After clicking that, your keyboard has been turned into a MIDI controller. If we select Steinway Grand Piano and click Command K, we can all of a sudden play it. For most of this tutorial, I'm going to be playing the piano down here. You can't see it because it's not in frame, but I have a full MIDI keyboard right below me that I can just play. I am a piano player first and foremost before I was ever a music producer, so I like having this at my fingertips to lay down ideas quickly. Totally not necessary if you don't know how to play the piano, but as you get better, it's important to start learning how to play the piano because music theory and music production go together very, very well. So great, we have a piano and we have our metronome. Last thing I want to go over before we get started is the eye or the inspector window that's available in Logic. We can click on it by clicking this eye here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us a overview of what the track will actually look like. So we can click here, we can click here, and this is the track that we have selected. If we click X and bring up our mixer, notice it's the same thing. If I affect one, I affect the other. This is just a quicker way of getting to where the mixer is without having to open it every single time. I do a lot of my personal mixing and effects in this window rather than going into the mixer itself. We'll talk more about that as it makes sense throughout the tutorial. Now that we've explained some of the basic features of Logic, let's hop in and create our first beat by creating a drum kit. We're going to create another software instrument, clicking Software Instrument, Default Patch, setting our output to our output, and clicking Create. Now, we're going to click on Electronic Drum Kit. We'll then click on, let's click on Analog Blaze. Every time I click on a different preset, you'll notice that the name changes and that all of the parameters about it actually change as well. We can zoom in and zoom out by clicking on these arrows up here so that we can see it better. Now that we have Analog Dream selected, we can see all of the individual instruments associated with it. Kick drums, snares, clap, hi-hats, toms, shakers, and so on. Notice that next to my electronic drum kit, I have a little down arrow symbol. That means there are kits in this that I haven't downloaded yet that are available to download. If you'd like to download one, you can click on one here, click on Continue. It will automatically find it on the Logic website and download it to your computer. Alternatively, if you don't see most of these, you can go up to Logic Pro, Sound Library, download all available sounds, and it will download all of the available sounds for you. Super helpful. Let's stick with Analog Dream right now. We're going to right click on the Analog Dream track. Let's zoom in a little bit. Once again, we're going up here. We're going to right click on it and we're going to create a pattern region. A pattern region is a drum sequencer that's used in Logic. A drum sequencer allows you to click on the boxes and then create drum tracks within seconds. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We're gonna go here. First of all, for this project, actually I wanna change my BPM. Let's put it down to 108. And now I can start with my drum track. I want my drum track to just cycle so that we can hear it over and over again as we're working on it. And to do so, you can click and drag this line up here to create a cycle. A cycle basically cycles the music or whatever is in that part and plays it over and over again. To turn on cycle or off cycle, you can click C on your keyboard. Or you can click this button up here, which is the loop or the cycle button. Now that we have this cycled, we'll turn on our metronome. You can see as we have this cycled, it's going to just play this. The highlighted squares are what's actually being played. So let's put a kick on 1, a snare on 2, a kick on 3, and a snare on 4. Cool. Now check this out. I made this sound, but actually it's a little bit too loud for my liking. I don't like the metronome, so I turned it off. I'm gonna take this BPM and drag it down. All of a sudden, I'm dealing with something that's a little slower. Any MIDI or pattern region that you have in your track will be affected by the tempo. Cool. I like the way this is sounding, but now let's add some hi-hats. So we have the kick, the snare. The most common pattern for drums is going to be having the snare on the 2 and 4 and the kick drum on the 1 and 3, just like this. Another common pattern for drum kits will be to put hi-hats on the 8th notes. which means just like this. Okay, how do we add some more variation to that so that it sounds less robotic? One of my favorite ways is by adjusting the velocity. In order to adjust the velocity, you can click on this caret here, and you can make sure velocity is selected by clicking here. The velocity of a MIDI note is how loud that MIDI note is played. If I put this all on 127, which is the highest velocity that it could be, you can hear it being louder. Whereas if I take this arrow and I drag all of them down, you'll hear it really quiet. When a human is actually playing a beat, they often change the dynamic variation with their hand hits to add emphasis and add accents. For this particular drum beat, I'm going to accent the off beats, which is every one that doesn't start on 1, 2, 3, or 4. That means I'm going to put this first beat down, have the second beat louder. First beat down, second beat louder. First beat down, second beat louder. Now, let's hear what it sounds like. I can adjust more of these as I want to give it even more of a human feel. Now let's say I wanted to add more variation to this pattern. As you can see, every measure, this is repeating. But when we play drums in real life, oftentimes we don't just repeat the same measure over and over again. If I click on 32 steps, that means I can adjust any of these variations. And that means when it gets to that part, there you go. I just use my mouse to quickly drag some of this stuff, and we already got a workable result. Another thing that is common about drum kits that I like to do is adding an open hi-hat right at the end. So let's listen to what that sounds like. Perfect. I like the way that's sounding. But let's say after we make this pattern, we don't really like the actual drum kit that we used. In order to get a different drum sound, what we can do is we'll click on Add Track again, Software Instrument, Electronic Drum Kit, and now we can choose a different sound. This time, let's try H-Town Fire. Now we can drag this same region down, but as you can hear, the sounds have changed. Alternatively, we can just click on this and change it real time. Cool. I really like the way hybrid knock sounds, so I'm going to roll with that. I'm going to delete that first track by clicking on it and clicking on delete. Perfect. Now we have a base for our song that we can work on. For this tutorial, we've just explored the pattern designer, but now let me show you how to make a beat using MIDI. Now, if you have a MIDI keyboard, this would be where this comes in handy. If we click record on this, and I'm going to be playing it on my piano down here, we can actually record straight into Logic the MIDI data we have. I want to make sure that click track is on so I can hear the tempo. I want to make sure that the count in is on so that it doesn't start immediately. Count in will give me 4 beats before it actually plays. And I also want to make sure that low latency mode is on. If low latency mode isn't on, click on this caret here, click on customize control bar and display, and turn on low latency mode. Latency is the delay between when you play your instrument and when Logic actually puts it through the speakers. Low latency mode gets rid of that delay by using Logic's algorithms to get rid of any pauses that might be between when you play and when the music comes out. So now that our track is armed to record here, we can click on R on our keyboard or click on this big red button, and that will start the countdown. Let's try it. Cool. That is a quick drum part. But notice while I was playing, I wasn't perfectly in rhythm. An easy way to fix that is by double-clicking on this MIDI track now. This will open up the editor. Now you can see all of the MIDI data in real time. Just like this pattern region, this is just playing the notes as we see. the velocity is in each note is actually represented by what color it is. I'm going to expand this so we can get a better view here. But take a look. If I click on this note, you can see the velocity is 109. A blue note is going to have less velocity, 40. The red notes are the highest and purple notes are the lowest. So what I would like to do for all these is I'd like to Command A to select all, and I'd like to quantize them. Quantization means Logic is going to take each note and move it to the closest beat available. You can specify which beat that is by clicking here. In this case, 16th note probably works, but if you're going for a slower beat, maybe an 8th note or quarter note, it might be what you want. Let's click on 16th note, then we'll click Q, and we'll see what that did. Perfect. That sounds perfectly in time with the grid and with the metronome. But what if I didn't want it to be so robotic? I can take the strength of this quantization and move it out. You can see the notes slowly moving back and forth depending on how much strength I did. I didn't play this too out of time, so they're not going to be crazy out of time, but I always like to, if I'm going to be playing it on my MIDI keyboard, to take the strength down a little bit from 100. Perfect, that looks great to me. Another thing that you can add and experiment with is using the swing knob. Once again, we'll Command A, and if we use the swing knob, we can adjust how swung this sound is. Take a listen if it's at 73. Really swung. 50 is going to be your straight, nothing is swung at all. I'll put a little bit of swing in mine around 55. I'd also got moved off one beat there. Perfect. All right, I've shown you two ways to create drum tracks in Logic. One is recording it with a MIDI controller, or you could even record it with Command K and using musical typing, or you can record it with the pattern region and using the drum sequencer. I'm gonna use this first track I have, and I'm just gonna move it over here. Now I'm gonna create my cycle over this part, and I'm gonna start adding some other elements of my track. When we're creating music, or at least when I'm creating music, I like to start with something like this or an idea, and then work around it. So I have this idea. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be the verse, or the chorus, or what it's gonna be, but I have this idea. That's great. I want this to be a kind of a hard beat, so I'm gonna add in some synths. I'm gonna click on this piano and then click on Y or click up here to get to all of the instruments I have available. Next, I'll click on synthesizer, and here you have a variety of synthesizers to choose from. Let's go with this first one. I liked it. Perfect. Now I've got a sound that I like, and I'm going to record a quick little ditty and a melody that I came up with for this beat. Here we go. Once again, I want to make sure the metronome's on, the count-in's on, low latency mode is on, and I'll click R, and I'll play it on my keyboard. Let me make sure this is turned off, and I just want this armed. I make that mistake a lot. Perfect. Now, same thing as before. I'm going to click in it by double clicking here. And notice, they're not directly on the grid. They're pretty close, but we can change that by clicking Command A, clicking on the strength, clicking here, and adjusting it as we see fit. Now, if we listen to it. Perfect. One thing I'm noticing is that this synth is too loud, so we can just easily turn that down by clicking here and dragging it down. Perfect. We're already off to a great start. Every preset in Logic is going to come with all of these plugins available on this inspector channel. Notice this has Bit Crusher, Phaser, Compressor, Channel EQ. If you don't know what any of those do, just leave them as is. That's what's helping make this sound like it does. But for this particular sound, I want it to sound more spacious. And a great way of doing that is by clicking on a reverb effect. Let's go to Reverb's Space Designer, and there we go. This is my favorite reverb in Logic, and it's got a lot of great presets for you to try. If you click up here and then click on medium spaces, small spaces, large spaces. They have a bunch of presets that will sound good that you can load on. Let's click on medium hall. Now, when we're adding it to the plugin track like this, the dry signal is going to be how much of the original signal is being played. The wet signal is how much of the reverb signal is being played. Check this out. More reverb, no dry at all. Perfect. So now we got a way washed out reverby sound. Another thing I'm noticing about this synth, it's a little bit louder in some parts and it's a little bit quieter in others. A great way of adjusting volume on the fly is through compression. Compression automatically will adjust the volume if the sound volume reaches a certain threshold. Let's open up our compressor and dive in. This threshold is the threshold I was just talking about. This is saying if this particular sound gets above this threshold, we're going to turn it down by 1.5 decibels for every 1 decibel over the threshold it is. This is a lot to take in, but all you need to know is that a compressor makes your volume more consistent. Perfect. Now we're dealing with some stuff that works a little bit better. The compressor is doing a good job. In Logic, the compressor will be shown by a purple bar going here. Now, let's add a different sound to our beat. We're going to click here, click Software Instrument, click on Default Patch, and we're going to create another sound. This time, we're going to go to Synthesizer, we're going to go to Bass, and we're going to click on one of these basses till we get something we like. Let's go crushed 808 bass. Now, let's do it. After experimenting a little bit, I've come up with a little bass line that I think will work well. Here we go. Perfect. Now, sounding pretty good. Let's click on it and let's click Command A, and we'll once again quantize it to make sure that we're in beat. Perfect. Now, what if I don't like the sound? Once again, I can just go back here and change it by going here. So let's audition a couple sounds using that same melody or bass line I created. Perfect. For this beat, I'm really liking the deep sub bass, so I'll stick with that. But there are a couple things I can do to this bass to make it stick out even more. One of those is adding distortion. Let's go into distortion and add overdrive to this particular sound. Overdrive is going to be great for this bass sound. We're going to add this tone here by adjusting this filter and EQ a little bit higher. We're going to add our drive up to maybe 9 and our output down so that we're not blasted by this sound. Now you can hear some of the harmonics that are being added to that sound. Anytime we add distortion, we're adding higher end information to the rest of the sound so it can be heard more easily. Especially for basses on lower speakers, they're not going to be heard unless you add that distortion. This is more of an advanced topic, and I know this is for beginners, but this is an important thing to understand, especially for basses. Now, we've got our beat, we got our bass. We've got our melody, we've got our bass, we've got our drums. Basically, we have an idea that could be used and worked with for the rest of the song. Now, let me quickly talk about music theory if you're not familiar with it. Music theory is a really important aspect of music production, and if you're not familiar with it, there are definitely some other tutorials that will go more in depth than this, but let me briefly touch on it for those unfamiliar. Let's create a MIDI with just our pencil. We're going here, we'll expand it a bit. We'll look it up a little bit more, and we'll just loop this so that we actually can hear what we're doing. In order to actually write in MIDI, we'll hold down Command, and we'll get the pen tool, and we can put in blocks here. Perfect. Now, something to keep in mind with beginning music production is we're going to be working with chords. The most basic of chords is going to be your major chord, which is going to be a C, an E, and a G. You can move those any point around the keyboard and it will still be a C major chord. C major, also C major, also C major. Okay? Those work. As long as we're using the notes C, E, and G, we're gonna have a C major. Notice how we made that chord. We put a white note here, skip this note, put this note, skip this note, put this note. We skipped these white notes here. Let's move it up to the next set of white notes and see what happens. We skipped this E, we skipped this G, now we have A, F, and D. Let's see what this sounds like. This does not sound like major because it is in fact a minor chord. If we stick with only these white notes, we will be in the key of C major, and we can create a lot of minor sounding chords or major sounding chords accordingly. Now, this is very basics of chord theory. The chord that we're playing generally wants to be doubled in the bass. That would be our bass note would be D because we're in D minor. Now, let's move this up and we can even just drag it up 2, and now we have an E minor. I'll put it on this beat. And let's put an E minor here. Perfect. And we can even take this and Alt, hold, drag it down. And now we almost have a C major, but we want this note to be up because the minor is different because the third is a half step down than a major chord. Now we have D minor, E minor, and C major. Those are all in the key of C major, by the way, but we have some chords we can work with. Let's experiment with some different rhythms so we can make it a little bit more interesting. I'm just gonna drag this here. And we already have something that sounds kind of cool there. My biggest recommendation, if you're just learning music theory, is to experiment. There are no real rules in music theory, but guidelines to follow. I could play this, but maybe it sounds good, but maybe you're after something different. For this lick that I played before, we're in the key of E minor. You can see that E, G, and B were in the key of E minor, but I just played them as single notes. Then this, I have F sharp, G, and A, which is more like D major, and then for the rest of this, so on and so forth. I'm in the key of E minor for this whole thing. I'm just playing different notes associated with it. So take a listen to what this sounds like when I have. Perfect. And now if I add the bass, you can check out what notes I'm actually playing. Look, I'm in E minor. This first note is an E. Then I go up to C and B. Why did I choose those notes? Well, they are part of E minor, but for me, they just sounded good. And that is a big way of determining what your music should sound like too. Keep practicing with music theory. If you don't know exactly what to play, you can copy some of the chords I just made, but I encourage you to keep experimenting and keep figuring it out because it's such an important part. Perfect. Now that we've got the basis of our beat, we're gonna add in and take away elements and arrange our song so that the listener goes on a journey. When somebody listens to a song, if we played this for 3 minutes, it wouldn't be very interesting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by adding in elements as the song progresses. This is a really classic technique and it helps build interest for the song. Take a listen to this. I just divided it into 3 parts. Building up the tension. Perfect. Now we can take these three, alt-click, and add them again if we want to. Or if we want to loop any part, we can click here, click L to loop it, and we can loop it as much as we see fit by dragging on the top right here. Okay, now we've added in one part at a time. For a song like this, I imagine the rapper is, or whoever is singing over this song, is going to want a variety of different parts to work with. Maybe this part with the drums is going to be the chorus. Maybe this part is going to be the verse. I think that sounds like a good plan to me. So I'm actually going to take this same pattern and copy it over here. So now these first two are my verse, and then these two are going to be my chorus. These first two are going to be my verse, and then these two are going to be my chorus, okay? Perfect. Now, I can add more elements to beef this chorus up, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on Deep Sub Bass, and I'm going to click this button to duplicate this track to make another exact replica of what we have. Now, we can just click on Synthesizer once again, click on, let's go Pads. I don't see pads. There it is, Pad. And we'll click on some of these, and we'll experiment. Just like before, we're in E minor, so I'm going to play an E minor chord. I really like Autumn Haze, nice. Let's hear what this sounds like with the pad. Oh, I noticed my cycle wasn't starting at the right point. Let's change that. Here we go. Okay, perfect. I recorded this. It wasn't perfect, so I'm going to click Command A, quantize it a bit. So what I can do is I can loop it by going here. Once I get this loop symbol, drag it out, and bada bang. I want to turn this down though. I just want it to be really in the background. But now, that's gonna make the chorus stand out even more. So, I've recorded my beats, and now it's time for me to record vocals. So I'm gonna click here, click this, click on audio, and click on input 2. Input 2 is the particular input that I'm using. If you're having trouble setting up your audio interface and whatnot, that is for a separate video. Hopefully you understand how to do it. If you're having trouble, leave a comment down below. I'm going to quickly write some lyrics to this song, and then I'm going to spit over this beat that I made and go from there. Alright, cool. To record vocals, I have to make sure my input's set to the right track. Once again, I want low latency mode on. I want to arm my recording track and no other recording track. And for this beat and this lyric idea, I based it off of learning Logic Pro, so I'll show you what that sounds like. For this particular microphone I'm using, I'm actually going to leave the monitors on and leave my headphones off. That normally wouldn't be what I do. I don't want to pick up any sounds from my studio speakers, but for this beat, I'm just going to do it. Let's go for it. Let's see what it sounds like. Logic, 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 Logic Pro. Perfect. Logic, 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 logic. Cool. So I just came up with that idea. This could probably be a background voice, and what I'm going to do to it is put a cool effect on it. So I'm going to go audio, pitch, vocal transformer, mono. I'm going to drop down the format and listen to what it sounds like. Logic, 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 logic. Logic, 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 bro. Logic, logic, logic. Cool. I'll fix the rest of that later. Let's go into add another track. Now I'm going to record the verses that I've written. Turn on the metronome, turn on the intro track, and turn on the low latency. Here we go. Yeah, it started in my mama's basement, learning Logic Pro, yeah, with my heart racing. Cool, I got that first part down. I'm just going to record it in sections so that I can get that flow down better. You can't stop me, my transition amazing. Maddie on the beat, now the game I'm macing. Hour after hour and night after night, I'm focused on the screen, yeah, under the dim light. My headphones, yeah, everything sounds right in this digital. And I only make beats to get too many likes. Now I want to have two audio tracks that go over each other, so I'm going to add another track so they don't conflict. And I'm gonna get rid of this plugin, and we'll go here.
Yeah, everything sounds right. Only make beats to get too many likes.
I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. Logic. Yeah, I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. Yeah. Nice little ad libs there. I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. I just got rid of that part by holding Command down, selecting in my marquee tool, and clicking on delete. Then for this next part, I would add in a second verse and so on and so forth. I just wanted to show you the basics of recording this. So I have my vocal here. There are a couple things I want to do to make it stand out. I'm going to add an EQ by clicking on this box here, adjusting this part up by clicking here.
Yeah, started it.
An EQ is going to get rid of certain sounds of the frequency spectrum more than others, and it is a vital tool for getting a great sound.
In my mama's basement, learning Logic Pro, yeah, with my heart racing. You can't stop me, my transition amazing. Maddie on the beat, now the game I'm macing.
Another thing I want to add to this is going to be a compression plugin, and you can do that by clicking here. I like Studio FET for my vocals.
On the screen, yeah, under the dim light. My headphones, yeah,
adjusting the threshold till I get about 5 to -10 dBs. I want about 4.
Learning Logic Pro, yeah, with my heart racing.
Perfect. Now I'm going to add in a reverb by going bus, clicking on bus 10, and this is going to allow me to bus a reverb to my track. This is an advanced topic, but if you follow the steps I'm going to show you, you can get good results. Go to Space Designer, go to Large Spaces, go to Plate Reverbs, and let's go Nice Plate. We're going to go all the way wet.
My mama's basement. Learning Logic Pro, yeah, with my heart racing. You can't stop me.
Add another one that's less big. That's more of an ambiance. We're gonna go default preset, small print spaces, rooms. Let's go blue room all the way up on the wet. This is a bus track, and we're gonna adjust it through here. I'm learning. Cool. Now I got the basic part here, and now I can take my settings here by clicking X. Now I'm going to click Alt-Command-C to copy what I have here, and I'm going to put it on this track, Alt-Command-C, right-click here, paste channel strip setting. I can alternatively just drag over by using Alt and using the exact same settings to get the same thing. Bus 10, add in a little bit, bus 11, add in a little bit, and I got the same thing for this part here.
Yeah, I'm learning.
I want to add these same effects to my vocal transformer as well. Let's hear what these sound like.
Logic, yeah, I'm learning. Logic.
Perfect. There we have our little beat. We've done some really basic vocal work. We've done some really basic mixing. Now it's time to master it and send it out to the rest of the thing. Let's go into our stereo out bus. This is where the master is going to happen. Now, for a basic master, let's click on Dynamics. We're going to click on Compressor. We're going to give a very basic glue over all these using Logic stock plugins. And we're going to go, what we're going to want to change is the actual ratio. We're going to go like 1.1. We're gonna go with the threshold, so it's boom, barely anything.
Learning Logic Pro, yeah, with
attack time high, release time low.
Can't stop me, my transition amazing. Maddie on the beat, now the game I'm macing.
Perfect. And now we can add in an actual limiter by going to Dynamics, going to Limiter, and this is going to bring our volume up to speed. For Spotify and for YouTube, let's put our limiter to -1. We're looking at the gain here.
Yeah, started in my mama's basement.
We're also gonna wanna add a meter plugin so that we can see how hot or how loud this is actually coming in. So let's add in level meter.
Yeah, started in my mama's basement.
I want True Peak and RMS.
Yeah, started in my mama's basement. Learning Logic Pro, yeah, with my heart racing.
We want the RMS to be about -14.
Yeah,
so let's go to the loudest part of our song, which is the chorus.
Logic.
That's too hot.
Learning.
Logic.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Make sure our output's set to -1 because that's what YouTube wants. We can adjust these a little bit.
Yeah, I'm learning.
All right, great. Now we've done what we need to do from a master perspective. And now in order to bounce this down, well, we only have this first part, so let's only bounce down this first part. We can mute this part by clicking Control M on our keyboard and then muting it. So now we have this part as our ending. Sounding good to me. Now, when we bounce it, once we have our cycle selected, that's how we're going to choose what we bounce. Let's go to File. We're going to click on Bounce or Export. That's the same thing. We're going to click on Project or Selection. We're going to choose what file type we want. If we want MP3, we choose MP3. If we want a PCM, which is an uncompressed waveform like WAV, AIFF, or CAF, I'll choose WAV here. I'll choose PCM. I'll click OK. I'll choose where I want to save it to. Let's just save it to my desktop. Beat example. And now it will go through and it will put exactly what we want. Now if we find my desktop, I've got so much stuff here. We open up beat example.
Yeah, it started in my mama's basement.
We can hear that
Learning
it bounced
Logic Pro,
down.
yeah, with my heart racing. You can't stop me, my transition amazing. Maddie on the beat, now the game I'm macing. Hour after hour and night after night. I'm focused on the screen, yeah, under the dim light. My headphones, yeah, everything sounds right. Only make beats to get too many likes. I'm learning.
Logic,
Yeah, I'm learning.
logic, logic,
Yeah, I'm learning.
logic,
Yeah, I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning.
Perfect. That is the song. Take a listen to what it sounds like. Hopefully you can make something similar. This is after years and years of working in a production setting. I know what the sound should be and I know what they sound like in my head. I know how to make that happen. For a beginning tutorial like this, it is tough for me to explain every single topic that is going on and how I get every sound to sound like they do and mesh together. A lot of it comes with practice. A lot of it comes with ear training. A lot of it comes with just repetitions of coming back every day. Your beats will get better, I promise. If you're interested in learning more about music production, I encourage you to follow this channel because I'm going to be releasing videos like this all the time that are going to teach you how to make better music just like this. I know this was a long video, but thank you so much for sticking to the end. Hopefully you learned how to make a beat in Logic Pro. There are so many aspects to it. I didn't have time to go in depth on every single one. If there's any aspect you'd like me to go into more depth on, leave a comment down below and I'd love to help you out, or just send me a DM and I'd also love to help you out personally. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.